in this episode with Sarah Montross.
Teacher training in New York City. That's where I really found the need to
Okay.
find yoga. I was like, oh, my mind is very active. How can I work with it? So what hooked me was that physical aspect, and then what made me stay was the philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said something like, you're drawn to yoga because you've been exposed to it in a past life. Climbing this corporate ladder, and I think I was in that first kind of group of professional women who were like post-feminist. I was just in awe of yoga teachers. I really wanted to steep myself in it. Continue to be inspired as a teacher is really important. Sometimes you have to make really scary decisions. The problem with yoga is once you know, you can never go back. It was important that classes were like a learning community.
Yeah.
And programs were a learning community. Like we were sitting in a circle. What I think is a useful structure, like I'm the teacher, you're the student, but yet not be in that power dynamic.
Yeah, that's a fundamental question. We're
The most important word in yoga, according to Manorma, my Sanskrit teacher, is ahimsa, which is nonviolence. What's important to me is that.
Well, welcome to Audie. Welcome to our school. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being a willing participant in the unknown. Just
what are we doing? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, and where you be.
Where or who?
Who, both? Yeah, it's like
I'm Sarah Montross. I be in Houston, Texas. I was born in Papua New Guinea. Did you know that?
I did not.
Born in Papua New Guinea.
Wow.
Yeah, my dad was in shipping. He's actually a captain, Captain Michael Martin. I'll never let you forget it. Just kidding. He never says that. But he's English. My parents are English, and so he was out there managing the port in on Bougainville. Everybody asks if we're like a military kid. I'm not a shipping kid. So my brother was born there too, and we were the only like Caucasian. Like I was the only Caucasian female baby in the hospital. Yeah, it was really cool. I don't remember it, but my mom said it was a really interesting place. And then, we moved here when I was 6, and I've been in Houston. It's like sort of on and off ever since.
Wow.
Spent some time away. So I did yoga teacher training in New York City. That's where I really found the need to find yoga. I was like, oh, my mind is very active. How can I work with it? So I was going to this gym in New York City called Crunch Fitness, and there was a spin room in the basement, and they'd push all the spin bikes aside and practice yoga down there. And I got really interested in what they were up to. And so I started practicing at Crunch Fitness, and then I got really hooked really fast. I'd always been really active physically. And so the sort of athleticism was really what drew me in, but then what made me stay, because I've been through lots of physical disciplines that haven't stuck.
Yeah.
But what hooked me was that physical aspect, and then what made me stay was the philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my first teacher was so awesome about like bringing in philosophy into class in a really approachable way. Her name was Malia Jade Hawley, and she would make us do these, invite us to do these chants that were like, my Metro card is not me. At that time, people were still using Metro cards. Now you use your phone, but it really showed me how you could make a sort of intimidating, possibly esoteric idea or concept or practice feel really approachable. So she was one of my early influences.
I love that.
Yeah.
I see that. It's still present in your presentation.
Yeah, like we can hold it sacred, and it doesn't have to be serious
all the time.
Yeah, we can hold it lightly and hold it sacred. So,
yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about what stage were you at in your life when you were in New York City and you found Crunch and you just decided to answer this calling? Like, what was going on with you at that time when you noticed your mind was active?
That's an understatement, I suppose. I was in publishing. That was my previous life. I spent 17 years in the publishing industry, and so books are my heart language. And I was in college publishing marketing for McGraw-Hill. Yep. I was also with Macmillan at some point, but McGraw-Hill,
big dog.
Yeah, big companies for sure. And another one called Thompson Publishing, ITP. I don't know them. And I was in marketing, which meant that I worked with our sales team on all the big, what we call them book adoptions. And so I would travel across the country to big campuses to help with these big book sales. Like, so if, for example, Texas A&M was looking at replacing their intro biology book, that means that's a huge sale for a publishing company. So I would go help in those presentations and things. So I was traveling around a lot. And I just really felt very ungrounded.
Mm-hmm.
And New York is very, can be ungrounding. My best friend lives there and she's a Libra and she's like, what? Totally chill. It's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, wow,
Every time someone tells me they're going to New York, I say, you don't go to New York to rest.
No, you don't. You gotta rest up.
Yes.
And then go to New York.
then have a plan after.
How do you detox and how much are you going to sleep when you get home? Yeah, so that was going on. I was living in New York and I was living in the West Village, living a very at that time, Sex of the City. Yeah, Sex of the City life, walking around the cobble streets in stilettos and paying for it now. And eating food and dancing to Justin Timberlake and underground clubs. Awesome. I always I've been thinking about those days a lot lately because the 2000s music is back in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, this reminds me of Manhattan, So that was really fun, but it was also really challenging for me to manage from a emotional and mental perspective, like feeling stable and steady in who I was. So I just knew I needed to go practice yoga. Something was like drawing me towards it. Pattabhi Jois says, I'm paraphrasing, he's like the father of Ashtanga yoga. It's just a style of yoga that probably influenced most of the flow classes that we're exposed to today, the flow teaching that we're exposed to, vinyasa. He said something like, you're drawn to yoga because you've been exposed to it in a past life. Or, so whatever you think about that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's all,
I happen to believe that.
Yeah, that you've been exposed to it before. So you come back to where the Bhagavad Gita says that no effort is ever wasted.
Yep.
Right? That no matter what you do in this life, let's say you're working hard on getting some more clarity and you have some other spiritual goal in this life and you don't quite get to where you want to get. Well, the philosophy says that in the next life, if you, take it or leave it, you'll come back again and restart your project. It's kind of like sort of low pressure, really.
No,
you don't have to get it all done.
Yeah, I know. That's so interesting.
It's not, like with Mary Oliver, this is your one wild and precious life. Well, what if it wasn't? Like, what if you had many opportunities?
Right. Infinite.
Cool. It's kind of cool, really. Yeah. You can either look at it like, oh my God, or so much possibility there.
Yeah, but I really appreciate that because I'm super interested at that point where we get drawn, we hear the calling to go into a yoga class or studio, and then it ends up changing your life, your trajectory, your healing journey.
Yeah, it did that for me. Obviously, I left publishing. I mean, I was on this climbing this corporate ladder and doing the thing. I was in that first, I think I was in that first kind of group of professional women who were post-feminist. So we were it was amazing. We're oh, we could do all these things. We could do these things that maybe our mothers couldn't do. So it was really exciting, both for our parents and for us. And so we just marched along doing it because it was what was available. And then at some point I was like, wait, do I want to do this? And don't get me wrong, I'm a little spoiled because my husband has a career that makes it possible for me to step back from that. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
If I hadn't met him, I probably would have figured out another way to step back from all that frenetic traveling, but I certainly have the privilege really of being able to not have to worry about, paying the mortgage, which I did before. That's a real thing.
Absolutely.
I just want everybody to know that, everybody, that's how can I eat and put a roof over my head, and take care of those I love. And then it's the first chakra stuff,
Yep. Yeah, the Maslow hierarchy.
or that. Yeah, if you want to look at psychology instead of yoga philosophy.
Very, there was lots of
it's just a different lens, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like you were practicing, and then at some point you decided you want to be a teacher, right? Yeah.
Well,
Can you talk about that, or how did that
yeah.
work, or was that gradual, overnight? How does that
Well,
happen?
okay. So, Tom, the reason I did teacher training, well, first of all, I was just in awe of yoga teachers. So, when I was practicing in New York, I don't know what it's necessarily like now because I don't practice there regularly anymore because I live here. But when I was living there, I just, I could, they were like goddesses and gods to me. You know, they were wise, they could do cool stuff with their bodies. They just seemed really like I wanted to be like them. And I was like, I will never be like them. So I didn't go into yoga teacher training thinking I was going to teach. I really just wanted to I was like, I need to know more about this discipline.
So really, went into teacher training as a student. Right?
Yes, as a
Yeah.
student. Yeah, I really wanted to steep myself in it. And at the time, I was, what had happened was I applied and I got in. I couldn't believe it. Laughing Lotus, which was it's kind of a famous vinyasa studio in New York that's not there anymore. But it was very creative and joyful and very philosophy driven. And so I applied, got in, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this because at that point I was traveling like 3 weeks out of a month. And obviously, anybody who's done a teacher training or has looked at it knows that that isn't compatible with a yoga teacher training, really. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to apply because I feel like I need to. And I did. And then weirdly, I got on this, I got put on a jury that made me stay in New York for like the duration of my training. Is that the craziest thing?
Mm-hmm.
I know, like the universe was like, it's time.
Yeah.
And I know it's so weird. And so I was in the jury selection process, and they were like, "So you're, have you ever been in one of those?"
I have, yeah.
And they're asking you all the questions, trying to figure out if like you're going to be biased or whatever. It was a asbestos case.
Okay.
So the guy's like, "Are you? So then you're a student?" And I go, "I'm a student of yoga." I remember doing that. And I'm like, "Oh my god, is that the most cliche, annoying thing I could have done?" And they were probably like, "Great, she's going to be so zoned out, she's not going to pay attention. It's going to be awesome." Meanwhile, I'm like, nerd. So anyway, they put me on the jury, which is a whole other thing and very traumatic, but it did allow me to, complete my yoga teacher training. So then I got through that and I moved away from America for a while. That's another story. I'll tell you for a glass of wine sometime. But I would move to Holland for a guy I was dating at the time. And I came back and I started practicing at this little studio called Yoga Ananda.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I met Nancy and Nick and Gayatri and Laura Russ and a lot of other people who were there.
We've talked a lot about big power in different episodes of the pod, right?
Yeah,
so those
sure.
are all the big power.
They're all
players,
the owners and the management team and
the thread weaves its way.
yeah, right, totally. I mean, these places were Yoga Ananda was very influential on the Houston. Did you ever go there?
I did.
Yeah. So it's like this little duplex in Montross, little sweat box, and she was like, "Will you teach?" And I was like, "No," because I felt very at that time like I really needed my yoga for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't want to share it because I knew I was being selfish. I was like, I need to be selfish right now. Also, I didn't think I could do it. I was like, there's no way I could teach yoga. So she kind of was like, didn't accept my no. Maria Merrill was her name. Hi, Maria. And thank you. And she was like, really just pushed me. And I was like, fine. And then I started teaching and I don't remember, I like blacked out the first class. I have no idea what I said. It's like I was in reptilian brain, you know, I really have no idea what I said. Fight or flight the whole time.
Yeah.
Probably for 6 months. But yeah, so that it wasn't really a choice. I kind of was sort of nudged into it. Mm-hmm. And then even then I was teaching part-time for a long time. Big Open. Nancy invited me to go over there. And then I was teaching just a Sunday class called, it wasn't called Bhakti Beats. It was called Devotional Flow. Because when Nancy had asked me to teach, I was like just out of India. I just got back from India. And I was hanging out with a bunch of Hare Krishna monks in India. So I was very, like, I was like in this kind of like, whoa, like my mind had been blown. So I was playing harmonium on Sunday morning and we were chanting. I'd hand out little slips of paper with chants on it. We'd chant. Maybe I'll bring some of that back. Anyway, so I was doing that only for a while. Then eventually it just got to the point where I was, dating. I met my husband, now husband, and we were dating. And he was just like, why don't you stop traveling so much? And a full-time job opened up at Big at that time. So I was managing the teachers.
I remember that.
Yeah, which was a different challenge for sure. And then I decided I didn't want to manage anybody anymore because I was doing a lot of that in publishing. And so now I just manage my mind.
Yeah, it's real.
It's real.
It's real.
And I have two step kids who are wonderful, and my husband and our house and our furry babies, and I manage to make all that function and nourish everybody with healthy food.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, you're being very humble, but I mean, both of us, I think we come at it from different places because of our, relatively new to it, and Bob and obviously a lot longer. But both of us, like when you say great teacher, your name is like first one out there, So there's something about your teaching, and I'd be interested for you to try to talk more about that. Just how do you see yourself now, and you've obviously been doing it for a while, and how are you approaching it? What's important to you? How
Now?
do you define yourself as a teacher now? Yeah,
What's some of the tenets of your teaching?
Man, Tom, that's putting me on the spot. How do I? What was the first part?
Yeah, well, we from our point of view look at you and say, wow, you're an amazing teacher. We really both get a lot out of going to class with you. So we see you as kind of you're obviously, I can tell you why I think it's good, but I'm interested from your point of view when you go into class and as you see yourself as the teacher, what stance are you taking? What are you trying to provide? What's important to you about managing that moment when you're with the other people in the classroom?
What's important to me is that students feel like I see them and that they're in a safe space and that they know that they're in choice and that they choose what makes them have a more grounded, joyful experience in their lives after practice because of practicing or because of some insight they had in practice that allows them to do something else in their life that makes them feel a little freer. But I also think just really to continue to be inspired as a teacher is really important. And I spend a whole lot of time studying and practicing. And so I have a deep well of inspiration to draw from. Yeah, that's important to me. And I think it's also in the choices about how you, as a teacher anyway, for yoga teachers, I think you really have to just choose how you live your life and make choices that support you being your best self in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
What might some of those choices be?
Eliminating things that, well, maybe just getting clear on what makes you what is your best self and when is that available to you, and then moving away from things that take you away from that. So like for me, it was stopping a job that the job itself wasn't, it was like great. I worked with college professors and I, at the end I was working with technology, people who implemented technology in the classroom. What do they call it? Informational and instructional technology.
Instructional technology.
Yeah, I was in that. I was supporting that at the end with a team of people, but it was great. I was in learning environments like this. It was inspiring. But it was the travel that was just, it was depleting me. I get anxious. And so I had to just stop that and then figure out another way to structure my life. And it was really kind of scary. Sometimes you have to make really scary decisions. And I think, where was I? I was in Austin at some yoga thing, and there's a guy that was very dreadlocked talking about yoga. And he's like, yeah, the problem with yoga is once you know, you can never go back. It's almost like you're like, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, it was so much easier when I was just sort of like moving through life, Mm-hmm. And I want to avoid like being like, well, now I'm so much more superior because I can see things clearly. And that's not what I mean. I think sometimes it's harder to live your life really looking at everything and deciding if it makes you be your best self or if it's causing you not to be able to serve in that way.
That self-awareness piece is crucial to me, and I see it in my counseling and psychology work, and I see it as a faculty member on campus now. I see that working with people who are trying to get better, needing that self-awareness piece to really come online. That's hard. We all have blind spots, right? So when we're in safe environments or around safe, we can see what we don't know that we're missing. That's one really important part. It's I really appreciate what you said. I want you to know that as a teacher, those things that are important to you are being completed. You're successfully doing those. And when this podcast came up, we're kind of looking at the crosshairs of wellness and success, right? Can we be successful and be well at the same time? Is one of the question that came up in an organic meeting, looking at the state of school and students and faculty and families. And oftentimes we see lots of evidence that people burn out on the success. They burn the candles and then they're just cooked.
Right.
And my approach is wellness. If you can do it with wellness, then that is success.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But there's got to be this middle ground. So that's what kind of led to this podcast and some of the conversations we're having. And whenever you're teaching, how do you really kind of fulfill on that piece of teaching your students and, the safety piece? I love that. How can we better teach our students or hold space for our students to have more self-awareness?
I was just in a class this morning where my teacher was talking about how, and this is in an Iyengar class, which is interesting because I think that historically they've been the most like this, possibly, in classes, which is why she's talking about it. There's a lot of change going on in the Iyengar method, which is the one I've been studying and really most intensely the past 12, 15 years. So she was talking about how when an instructor gives you an instruction in class, and this could be in yoga or anything else, instead of just going, okay, yes, I'll lift my chest, and lift your chest. Okay. Taking a breath. And then saying, okay, inhale makes sense to lift my chest. So I'll wait for my next inhale and then see what it feels like to lift my chest. Instead of just rotely obeying what teachers are saying or asking us to do, perhaps exploring what it feels like in our own bodies with the suggestion of the teacher. I also think, and that was kind of revolutionary for me, honestly. Like my nervous system was like so different through that whole practice. The
embodiment of it.
Yeah, like being in the asana instead of just executing things my teacher asked me to do. It's kind of amazing to think about, right? So I'm very much like, I love it. I love it when I please people. I'm like, yes, I did what they asked me to do. I'm successful.
Right.
So I'm working on it a lot. And so when I use language in class, I try to, and I'm not always successful, but I try to say, well, the invitation here is, or, see what you feel here, or, okay, what's happening now? Or like last night, I said something and then a student asked a question. I said, well, you said, feel the benefits of the pose. And I was like, well, that wasn't very artful. What I actually meant was, can you be in like this stage of it before rushing forward to do the next stage? Like be in this one and see what that feels like. And then, then maybe do. And then if somebody's doing something that's different, instead of being like, don't do that, be like, hey, is there something going on I need to know about, or is there a reason that you're doing it that way? Or, like letting the students be in exploration while also holding them sort of in a space. Cause I think sometimes too, it's useful for me anyway, for people to hold me in a structure because my mind is active. So if I have like, okay, this is what we're doing and holding me to account to do it in a way that works for me, then that's actually what I go to a teacher for, But can I do that in a way that supports students feeling inquisitive rather than sort of like bossed around? I don't want to be yelled at in a yoga class. Have we all been yelled at in yoga classes? Yes. I don't know.
This worked for me.
This worked for my nerve. It's like,
I'm so sensitive to that these days. My nervous system just ramps right up.
I know.
Like someone's yelling anywhere. I'm like, I can't.
I know. I'm like, I don't still yell at me. Oh, Tom, what another thing that's important to me in teaching? Humor.
Yeah.
I think it's important. Like I try to do it. Sometimes I'm just being silly and doing whatever. And I'm like, Sarah made it in, but other times I use it like very specifically as a tool to like release the pressure valve a little bit. Like when things are really hard, I'm like, oh, they're suffering. I sort of make a joke.
Which brings back the lightness of it all.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we're fine, because I know that I just have been doing it long enough that I know when things, I can feel it, but I also know what's hard. So I'm like, okay, they're gonna hate this, or they're gonna be mad at me, like for sure. So if I could be like a little, I know you're mad, maybe they'll give me a little slack.
Tom one time kind of touched on that. There was a kid having an issue, and when they tend to dramatize some things sometimes, and he's like, he looked out the window, it's like the world isn't burning down. That comes up a lot. That let's take the pressure off a little.
Yeah, like oof.
Yeah, or that interaction between the teacher and the student. I mean, that's sort of one of the the idea of podcast called the yoga of school, right? And so one of the things that we're interested in is, all right, well, a yoga studio is in some ways a simple model of it's a school in its own kind of way, right? And there's a learning interaction, there's a teacher-student interaction, and very much you are super funny. I find myself wanting to like talk back, and you're not supposed to. I feel like
talk back.
I feel like I'm not talk back, but Josh back. But what I like about it, and I think this is kind of germane to the work that we're doing here at the school, is there's absolutely no doubt that you do that preparation, right? That deep, voluminous, ongoing learning, right? And you're feeding that into the space. Sometimes people that do that can be really heavy and pompous and ponderous, and that creates and I think for the learner, especially for kids, that's a barrier. That's a barrier, right?
I know, and you don't.
Yeah. It creates, what, Jaeger would call this barrier of mistrust, right? Because there's a power dynamic in there. And the humorous moment, they say laughter lubricates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of opens that space, and I think kind of widens that learning window, right? And you have to be careful about the kind of humor that you use, but I think it's a really powerful thing. And a lot of our young people spend a lot of their day being very serious. They're very achievement oriented.
Yes.
They are working hard,
yes.
And that's good in a lot of ways, but it can't be the sole food, the sole sustenance. There has to be some levity in there. And a lot of the work that Bobbin's doing is really just trying to create a space where they can let the guard down, right? And just, hey, you be you. And, maybe you don't have to pretend that you're 25. You can just be 15 or 16.
Please be 15.
Yeah, it's a beautiful age.
It is.
Yeah.
One of my teachers, Christina Sell, talked a lot about this when I used to practice with her a lot more. She was in San Marcos, but moved away to Washington. I'll see you soon, Christina, at some point. But she used to talk about how for her, it was important that classes were like a learning community.
Yeah.
And programs were a learning community. Like we were sitting in a circle, not like in a triangle with the guru at the top and the students underneath. And that's really how I try to teach. So like if a student asks a question, I try to say, well, it depends on the question, but if it makes sense to say, well, what do you think? Not only because I'm trying to direct usually they know the answer. Because if a student has formed a question, they probably at least have a couple of options for the answer.
Yep.
So I'll go, well, what do you think? And then they'll say, and then I'll be like, oh, well, that's interesting. I also always, this little selfish, because I learn a lot of stuff from the students. Mm-hmm. They'll say things and I'm like, oh, that's smart. So I try to encourage more of that mood, but also still remain like, it's also hard I think it's hard for any kind of teacher. How can you maintain what I think is a useful structure? Like I'm the teacher, you're the student, but yet not be in that power dynamic.
Yeah, that's a fundamental question. we're trying to explore.
Yeah.
Community environment is the main ingredient that I know works for me so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I'm really interested in, how that works. How can we share that as a nugget for people, other teachers, instructors, guides?
Yeah, like what is leadership? It's more like leadership.
Yeah, leadership. And that even has
for me.
That word is even triggering on some levels.
Yeah.
But what is effective leadership?
Yeah.
It's
right.
knowing that you're a student too.
Right. Yeah. So I don't even be like, I don't know. Somebody asks a question, I'll be like, I don't know, actually. I'm still, or I'll share that when I'm teaching, or like, well, you were in class when I like totally threw my twisting. Like I was like, I've been teaching twisting wrong for 20 years.
You recanted.
Yeah. I was like, you remember all that stuff I was telling you to do for 18 years? Just forget it. It's not great. So I like to also model that. Like, you could change your mind.
To err, human, yeah.
Yeah. And also, it's not necessarily an error. I was operating from the best information I had,
Yeah.
And then I learned some more information and I made a different decision.
Yeah.
Based on my experience, not just because somebody told me. And that's something that's very being like in a yoga teacher specifically, like it's very experiential. So you're making sure that you're experiencing it and then teaching from your experience, not from some,
Prepackaged.
yeah, I'm not sure that's true too with
Yeah.
teaching school.
Probably.
Like
Yeah.
teaching, like I know it's a little different, but
I mean, it speaks. A lot of teachers have disconnected themselves from being a student. They've been in the teaching role for many years.
Mhm.
They forgot what it's like to be a student.
Mhm.
They're still used to dispensing and grading. And I think it would benefit us all to step back or step into a learning environment again, to be a community learning situation, just for the benefit of all.
Yeah, just to remember what it's like to be new too. Like it's really useful to remember what it's like. There's some you probably know this. There's like some instructional principle where people who've just learned something are much more effective with their peers than people who've known something for a long time.
Yeah.
Is that called something?
Yeah, I would imagine that just sort of, if you've learned it, like the schema, is much fresher in your mind, versus it's become kind of embedded.
Right. It's like, I don't know. I've been doing it that way for 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how to teach headset
Yeah.
or whatever. But if somebody just learned it, they might be able to share something with their fellow student. So it's sort of interesting also just to remember that, like that when you have been teaching for so long, I think it's useful just to keep like learning new things, because then you can remember what it's like to be new. It just refreshes your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, for some in the yoga world specifically, I think that it's sort of challenging. Yoga came from a society that was very different. It like the teachers would get sort of taken care of by the community, from what I understand, or the village they were in. So they didn't have to like make a living teaching. And there are some teachers out there who are making a living teaching yoga. So they are I just teaching 15 classes a week, driving around in the traffic of Houston. And again, I feel very lucky, and lucky is not the word.
Okay.
Grateful. Thank you. I feel very grateful that I have the time
Yeah.
to study.
Right.
So I think I feel like it's my duty to share it in a way that works, for people. So people tell me a lot, when are you going to do a workshop? When are you going to do training? I'm like, just come to my classes. That's where stuff's getting transmitted for me mostly, so.
I love that.
Anyway, I don't know.
The class that I go to is, alignment is really a huge part of it. This concept of alignment, and really breaking a thing down, or a set of things down around these principles of alignment. There's sort of a physical alignment, and I would imagine, I guess, a concurrent mental or psychological alignment. You seem to be kind of like the alignment queen for me. So, like, what's going on with alignment? Yeah. Why is that? Why is that your bread and butter? Yeah.
Well,
maybe it's not, but that's the one I go.
Well, it is. Yeah. I mean, I did my 200-hour, like the most creative vinyasa studio I don't know if it was the most, but Laughing Lotus was famous for like super creative sequencing. I mean, Dana Flynn and Jasmine Tarkeshi were like the owners, and they were just, Dana Flynn in particular. I didn't practice that much with Jasmine. She was sort of on her way out to San Francisco by the time I was really there, but she'd make stuff up all the time, like, oh, this is Krishna playing his flute. And then people would be wearing bindis in class, and, it was like a party, like a yoga party. And that's where I did my first training. And at some point, though, along the way, I was like, somebody knows what's actually happening in the poses and how actually to do them. Because I was like, some things are really easy for me, and then others I was like, I don't know how to do this, and I can't just like figure it out. So I need somebody who can help me. And so I did my 300-hour in New York at Yoga Maya, which is still there. It's amazing. They're like alignment based flow. So it's like slower, more intentional flow. And they some of them study with the Iyengar crew. And so I was like, oh, they're studying with the Iyengar people because they were the closest. I was like, they know stuff. And I'm like, who's teaching them stuff?
Yeah.
And so then I was like, it's the Iyengar people. And so I started studying with the Iyengar teachers, and I was like, my mind was blown. I was just like, oh my God, like they know it. How come everybody doesn't practice Iyengar yoga? Like, so I just got really interested in that. And I noticed that when I went to that kind of class that was slow and intentional, that I came out and my nervous system was like reset. I was like, oh, I feel like I just went to the spa.
It worked.
But better than if I went to the spa. And so I want people also to feel when they come out less fight or flight than when they came in. And that doesn't always happen for me in other classes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I come out of other classes, like, especially when I was doing more heated yoga, heated vinyasa, I would come out and I was like, my heart rate was elevated. It was so hot. I was still sweating. I was like in fight or flight. You know, I had like tons of stress hormones running through my body. It's like my body's like, it's hot, danger, you know. Mm-hmm. It's too fast. And certainly not everybody's teaching like that. And I think it seems like things sort of slowed down a little bit. I don't know. I don't go anymore. So anyway, so that's how I got hooked, is I just felt better in those classes. And I was interested in like learning how to do at that time to do cool things. And I'm less interested in cool things now. Like right now I'm doing a yoga nidra training.
What's that about?
It's sort of sometimes like called the yoga of sleep. It's like, I think it's called in non-yoga circles, non-sleep deep rest, NSDR. I think like Andrew Huberman, I think calls it that. But it's so they sort of get you into this place between sleep and wakefulness. It's like basically a guided meditation, but the focus is more on relaxation than sort of
very restorative.
Yeah. Sure. So I've been really interested in that because one thing I noticed is everybody's really tired, you know, and people come in and they're like, oh man. And then I got bolsters in my studio in Montross there. Everybody was like, you know, and I was like, okay, everybody wants to lay around. Okay. So I started doing this training, and also because for myself, I needed more rest. I was just like, let me do this and it'll help me get focused on that. So like as part of the program, they invited us to do yoga nidra every day. It's like an 8-week program, 8-9 week.
Who's doing that?
Yoga medicine, Tiffany Cruikshanks. Okay. Online. It's online, and I do 2 hours a week. But anyway, all that to say, I'm really also interested in, besides alignment, getting a little quieter. And I don't think meditation, just sitting in meditation, works for a lot of people. So this like is guided, and they're like, oh, I'm laying down, great. And so it can be very healing for people. And I've noticed a real change. Like last night, when it took me an hour and a half to get to the studio, I was like, I mean, I did honk at 2 people, but I also was like pretty chill. I was like, why am I so chill? I was like, yoga nidra is working, you know, so.
Surrender to this.
Yeah, I'm like, this is what's happening. What am I going to do? I'm just going to turn on my Billie Eilish and sing and dance around in my car. Yeah. So I'm really but it's the same idea really, right? That like you feel better at the end of it. So in your life that's outside of yoga, you can be like kinder, more thoughtful, or more mindful about how you interact with other people. Be more like yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the ideas, so I have 2 questions. The Yoga of School, how does that name land with you? What did you think of when you first read it or saw it or heard it? What came up?
I was like, I don't know. I was like, what does that mean? And I was like, is it like School of Rock? It's like, wait. And like, that's what it made me think of. I love the School of Rock.
Yeah.
I think it's rad. I was like, how are they? What is that? So I didn't know.
Okay, it was curious.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm interested to learn about it.
Got it. Yeah. One of the practical things is I've learned so much from you around like the practical applications of the other limbs of yoga, or all the limbs of yoga. And we always talk about the one asana is very commonly known, but I'm curious to know like what are some of your initial thoughts about applying some of the other limbs of yoga to wellness and success and that whole sphere.
So like the 8 limbs, meaning like sort of yamas and niyamas.
Mhm.
And so the yamas are, Tom, do you know all these?
I've heard them in your class.
Yes.
I haven't totally incorporated them, but let's
Yeah, no.
put them out there.
Yeah, so the yamas and the niyamas. The yamas are how you cultivate your, how you interact with the outside world.
Yeah.
The niyamas are how you cultivate your own internal practices. And then we have asana, which is the one everybody knows. And then pranayama is like working with your energy and your breath. And I've started introducing a little more focus on the breath in my classes. Not like a structured like pranayama, but more like, hey, let's see where the breath can go and how it can inform our movement. And then pratyahara is withdrawal of the senses. So we definitely do that in Yoga Nidra, for example. We're trying to quiet everything down. And then the last 3 limbs are like a progression towards like complete absorption and like, let's see if we start getting real esoteric. It's a concentration, meditation, samadhi, right? So this idea that we're sort of merging back into the what connects us all. It's like a way, it's sort of like starting from the most gross and going into the most subtle. The yogis talk about how we come into existence from the great consciousness. Bits of us slowly evolve. And then we're sort of, it's weird. It sounds weird, but it's like a process of devolution in a way, going back in. So relating those to success
and wellness. Healing the world or healing some of the things that are ailing us.
So many things ailing us. The most important word in yoga, according to Manorma, my Sanskrit teacher, is ahimsa, which is nonviolence. And the yogis talk about nonviolence not only in terms of our actions, but in our thoughts and our words.
Yeah.
And it's in our word choice. I think word choice is so important. And we can really, I think in any environment, a yoga class or in a yoga classroom, in our interactions with each other, with our people like our family, how can we choose words carefully? There's tons of literature on nonviolent communication, so that's a whole discipline in itself. But I think it's really interesting to think about specific word choice. We don't, and I'm also really interested too in, are we going over the top with anything? Sometimes I'm like, are yogis too navel gazing? Because really yoga, like if you read the philosophy in this book, the Yoga Sutras, it's like very self-centered. It is. It's like, I want to become enlightened. It can feel very self-centered. Right. But
the end goal
is
collective.
It kind of, but it's for yourself, sort of. It's like, it's unlike, for example, the Bhagavad Gita, which is a lot more of a service kind of component to it. It's a little more, the yoga, this is a little like, kind of like ascetic, It's like you're going to go meditate in the cave somewhere.
Well, wouldn't you say that that's what we actually have choice and agency on, is the self? And so it's kind of guiding us there.
Yeah, totally. And this came out after the Gita, like in time.
Right.
I'm holding this up, so Yoga Sutras, by the way. I'm pulling a copy.
Is that the copy I referred to you?
This one? No.
This one is really good.
Yeah.
I like this one. Ravi Ravindra is the author of this one.
There's a couple of iterations. Some of them are harder to read.
There's so many. I have like 20. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I do. I'm always studying them.
Which version do you feel is the most digestible?
This is my current favorite, Ravi Ravindra. Now, is it the most digestible? I think probably there's a copy, there's a blue one, a light blue one. It's Satchitananda is the author, Swami Satchitananda. And that one's used a lot for yoga teacher trainings because it's very straightforward. I don't like some of the, for example, language he uses, but I've been studying this for so long and I have so many copies that sometimes I recommend one and then we're using it in a teacher training. I'm like, that's for me, not for them, but I do think that one's probably the best. But yeah, I mean, anyway, so I do think, Bhagavad Gita is yoga philosophy also. And so the Bhagavad Gita teaches us, so going on from nonviolence in the Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Gita teaches us that we really only have agency over what we choose to do, not what happens as a result of it, So that's really freeing also, I think, for those of us in roles where we are dealing with a lot of moving parts and things outside of our control. think living human beings living on the planet, like if you're attached to the results of what you're doing or the outcome of what you're doing, you're probably going to suffer a lot more than you need to. Whereas if you just offered something up as my best, this is my best.
Yeah.
That's what I do also, by the way.
I'm trying to make that fit for school when we're talking about assessment.
Oh my God.
Right. I'm going to do the best I can, but that best sometimes doesn't give you a passing grade.
And also with you have standardized testing too, or do you not?
We don't here.
How does that work?
We do some norm reference testing, but I think we're fortunate. We don't have that state overlay, so that, but we do some, well, we have different kinds of testing. So there is, at the end of the program of study, when you're in 11th and 12th grade, you're doing the IB diploma, and there's exams at the end, and then there's internal assessments, which are, big projects that you've done in the school that, get sent out to get assessed, or they get moderated. So there is this externality to it. There's some agency out there that's deciding, but we don't have the yearly STAR test and things like that. But a big theme, things we've been talking about is like, how do you, it's really hard to learn under pressure, right? And one of the things that was very interesting, I think it's one of the, you talked about that hook, when you get kind of hooked. I remember in the early days when I was going to big, and, had this realization that there's this duality going on, which is like, you're totally fine, you're beautiful, you're whole, you're good, but you could always get better. Right. And that's almost exactly the opposite of the dynamic that sometimes can kind of come to the surface in a highly achievement oriented culture like we're in, right? As people, they don't feel okay. They feel like that there's always, and we know the statistics now with social media and all that mimetic behavior, that young people are exhibiting, right? They're looking, they're comparing the, nonviolent communication. Comparison is one of the most violent things, right? And we're inflicting it on ourselves, in an almost continual fashion now. That does, that's obviously going to have an impact on young people. So trying to get them unwound from that, even if they can be successful, quote unquote, successful in that, it's like we don't feel it's ultimately leading them to a place that's a healthy place or a whole place, right? And that's sort of got us looking at some of these yoga ideas. They seem to create room for that duality and maybe more openness to feedback, because it's not, a lot of times it's hard for students to take they'll do an assessment, they'll put their heart and soul into it, or they'll use their best chat GPT to do it. And then not that would ever happen, but and then the teacher in the teacher role makes the professional judgment, the assessment, and then that's now at an identity level for the kid,
right.
Like if
they completely internalized,
completely, like you just instantaneously in the vein, and that's we live in the world we live in, and we're not pretending that we can overturn all that, but we're looking, okay, are there some things that we can do to try to break that up a little bit? And when you were talking before about yoga being self-centered, the word that was coming up, I don't want to go all the way that way, to that maybe level of preciousness, but we do see it as being potentially centering, like,
well, yes,
right, that you could help you get back to a place. And when I look at like the class that Bobbin teaches, it feels more like the impact of the exercises ends up being more social and communal than individual. Is that fair? I mean, how are you experiencing the young, their process in there?
It's how am I experiencing it? I'm experiencing it with them is probably a good place to start. So I try to break down that I'm not a disciplinarian. I'm your friend. I'm here to work with you and be with you, and we're just going to be real together. And I try to keep that as a mainstay. And then there's this piece about being seen and heard that happens in a community environment, in a safe space, in a circle, that circle round table piece that I find very effective in the healing process. And that's really what it is. Let's come in, we take our shoes off, have this really fuzzy rug that I've got for the room, and kids now dive into that thing. And when they do that, there's this, as they're getting to that, you can see all the stress and the expectations just fade away, and they're just like there.
What color is the rug?
It's gray.
I just have to imagine it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like almost like this. And so I've created that literally like a texture, a touch point for them. They come into my space. We don't have devices or shoes or materials. We're just present with each other. Right? We're having these organic conversations. We're learning about intimate conversations, like intimate sharing, not about intimacy, right? And I can, over the course of last year, I watched kids like come in as little kids and leave as young adults. I mean, and I'm not saying I was responsible for that, but I watched that. Witness that through like they don't have to perform, or there's not a totem pole that needs that. They're not trying to. What is that? What is that? The prefrontal lobe right now.
Prefrontal cortex
is really concerned about being an adult right now, or making sure that they have a place, and we see them that way. And,
like developmentally.
Yes.
Yeah, they're age.
They're more concerned with that developmentally right now than they are learning. So if we can attend to that in a way, we can maybe get some traction on some stuff.
Yeah, like if you can like see them and know that they're heard and they're important and
they know that
they have value.
Yes.
Then you can get that out of the way so you can actually get something done.
Right. Yeah, let's try this pose. You want to have a crow competition?
Yeah.
Right. And then we're working on stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's I think that's true of adults too. You know, when it's like you don't want yoga students walking into a classroom where there's like already like so if Tom and I know each other and then let's say I know like 8 of the students in the class and then 2 new ones come in and we're all engaged in something between the 8 of us and I'm not making an effort to include them, then they don't feel safe or seen or heard, and then they can't really learn anything. So one of the main things I want to do, and I always greet everybody and say hello and look at them. And, I think I'm sure it's the same with students.
Absolutely.
Like in a classroom environment, like on a campus like this.
Yeah, it's so strange. Like we're having a good time. We're talking. We know each other. We're in a class. We see each other, but we're not realizing that we could be othering people unintentionally.
Yeah, right. Just because we're so close. I know.
It's tough.
I know it's hard.
But it's so important at the same time for the community learning piece to take place. So creating a classroom or a classroom environment or school where community is at the forefront of our practices and the way we do things might be a good place to start.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, going back to that idea that yoga is inherently like in the philosophy kind of self-centered, it can you can still use those principles to support a really strong community. And that is what happens in a well-run, I think, yoga studio that really focuses on the principles of yoga and upholds them. That comes forth in a really beautiful community. That just happens because when you take care, like you were saying, you take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself first, really, right?
Yeah, when you come into alignment with yourself, then you can.
You can serve. Yeah, and that's another thing. I have this teacher. Still call him my teacher, Gauravani. He's a Hare Krishna. He's a kirtan musician. Yeah, you met him. Yeah, right. Yeah, and Gauravani. I went to India for my first time with Gauravani, and I met him in New York. He was teaching harmonium lessons. I took some harmonium lessons from him, and we kind of have like a brother sister kind of vibe. My brother's big. He's big, and he said something to me like joking, and I was so stressed about India. Like I was like, what am I supposed to wear? And people had been, so this happened. People had been there. It was a group of people had been there earlier, and I could have come to later because I was still working in publishing at the time. And they had all been shopping in Chennai and all had like very Indian looking outfits. And I didn't. I was in my like linen or whatever from America. And I felt so othered. So I was already like, and then he made some sort of offhand comment to me that if he would have made it in the United States, the yoga studio in New York, I would have been fine. And instead I was so upset. Like I went into like a little ball and he came up to me the next day and he's like, hey, I'm just here to serve you. I'm so sorry. I am here to serve you. I remember him saying that. I was just like, and he said, I'm here to smooth your path. He said that. I was just like, I'd never had anybody say anything like that to me. I am here to smooth your path. And I was like, wow, that is like, that's bhakti, like in motion, that's the yoga philosophy of that, of the Hare Krishnas. It's Bhagavad Gita in action, essentially. And I was really inspired by that. And
took me a long time to get myself sorted out before I feel like now I can go into a yoga studio and be like, okay, I'm here to serve you. Occasionally, my stuff will come up. I'm a human being, so I'll get triggered by whatever.
It's gonna happen.
My ego will come up, but for the most part, really, that's what motivates me is I want to serve the student.
Yeah.
So I think if your teachers or your staff, are intrinsically motivated by that, then the students will know. I think they know.
I think they do know. They pick it up. They can feel the vibe.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, my ego. I want to prove to you that I know more than you.
Yeah, well, I think that's a fundamental kind of choice point or orientation. Is the stance of the teacher? Are we serving the discipline or are we serving the student? Right.
Right.
Like, am I protecting the august nature of chemistry and not giving anyone a higher grade on those, balancing those equations than they deserve, or are we paving the way, sweeping the path for that learner to get there? And obviously we're pushing for the latter, right?
Yes.
But there's a lot of us, you do what you've seen, right? So hey,
right.
what's before people became a teacher in high school, usually the last teacher they saw was a college teacher. And at least back in the day, they were just being expert on stuff and not really vibing on you as a student or caring about that.
Because they're set up to get, they're rewarded for research, right? That whole structure is different.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's changed a little bit.
It is definitely shifting.
And depending on where you go and,
Part of it with technology, because before, they had been able to consolidate all that information and it was very hard to acquire it, very hard to even get at it.
So it's definitely that guru.
Now it's like, okay, well, no one's owning this information. And if you have an internet connection, you can pretty much get access to almost, any information that you need. So therefore that person that's the repository of subject matter knowledge is not that special anymore.
Right.
Now it's like, what do you do with it? Or how do you help people understand it? Or how do you blend that with other disciplines becomes more important. And that seems to be, so the teaching act being more into a facilitative place, I think is happening a lot.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And I think I've been thinking about this a lot too lately, like going back to the idea of like professors, like being sort of like the guardian of the information and then like handing it down. I think it's really important who you choose to, and I'm going back to like the yoga aspect, and obviously your students can't choose this in your environment, but like as a yoga student, like choosing who you spend your time around, like the whole, like, how do you, like, what are the choices you have to, so like Vern and I went to this concert last weekend, Simple Minds, and it was like really mind blowing. Like, no pun intended, I guess, but I was just like, wow, they were so good and so electric and so jazzed to be there, and we were like really pulled into their sort of viewpoint of the world. And I was thinking about that with concerts, like those are the great ones where you go to one and you're like, wow, I really get their philosophy and I'm jiving with it. Not just people playing songs. And I think that's the best yoga teachers have a philosophy about their life and the ones that you resonate with that is what you're like, I want my life that jives with what I want my life to be, or what I want to highlight in my life, or she makes me feel like, or he makes me feel like I can access that part of myself better.
Yeah.
So maybe you can,
the true definition of teacher, I think, someone that can help you access your best life. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So are your teachers doing that? This is why anyway.
Well, I hear you. I mean, that to me, the next thing is like, how good are your teachers doing that for themselves?
Yes.
And that would be a measure, a temperature gauge for how well they're able to do that for others. That's kind of where I've been in the last few years. Really dialing in on that part, making sure I'm solid on that and what I'm doing there.
That's true. That's what I was saying, feeling inspired and surrounding myself with knowledge and teachers who fill me up so that I can hopefully share some of that with my students.
Yeah.
Tom, we didn't get to talk about how you saved my life.
Yeah, well, I want to do that, because yeah, I mean, we might never be able to say this on any other episodes of the pod, but I'm pretty sure I saved Sarah's life. We can go into the story, but I'm not sure because this thing happened, and then I know you've talked about what happened, but I've actually never heard the story myself.
Oh.
I think one day you were explaining it, but I came in at the very tail end.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah, so let's go back. Let's wind the tape back because I've never saved anyone's life before. that I know of. That I know of.
Have I? Yeah, I think I have.
How?
Yeah.
Moving car. I know once the kid running the street.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, like you push a kid out of the way?
No, yeah, something like that. But there was another thing too. So.
I gave somebody a the Heimlich once.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, they were choking on a Quiznos grilled onion.
Yeah.
So specific. Quiznos. Yeah.
But so Don, you get to
Yeah,
say
I can say, I
I
can
know
say
you
the
can
story
say that
now,
too.
right?
So, well, okay. So
Yeah.
my husband and I were going to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
We were going with his friend who is a geologist, and he had been there many times. So we were like, yes, we're going with Carl. He's amazing. He's a geologist and learned stuff. And he was taking a group of people with him. And we are like, yeah, we'll go. We can talk about it forever. It's January, end of January or something. And Carl has said, you need this stuff. Because I was like, what do we need to be? I was sort of newer to hiking at that point, and we'd hiked a little bit, but we hadn't done anything kind of big like that. And because we were hiking into the bottom, staying overnight at a Ghost
Ranch.
Yeah, and hiking back out. Yeah. So down Bright Angel, Phantom Ranch.
Bright
down Bright Angel and out the other one.
Yeah.
Forget. Anyway, so I was like, okay, this is what we need. And I hadn't gotten, like at that point in my life, I was like, poles are for wusses, hiking poles are for wusses. Now I'm old and my knees hurt, so I have them for the way down. But I was like, well, older. My body is older. So I was talking about this, and Tom, you were like, "Are you insane?"
No, you were kind of talking about, hey, I'm not gonna. It was at the beginning of class, I think. You were
just chatting.
You're doing you're kind of like, kind of doing the pre-class chat, and you were talking about, hey, just. I'm, getting ready to go to the Grand Canyon, and so I'm not going to be here the next 2 weeks or something like that. And I was, I didn't really know you at the time.
No,
I just started practicing, but prior to this school here, I worked at a school that had this very intense wilderness program, and we went to the Grand Canyon a lot. So I had a lot of personal experience with the Grand Canyon.
You're an expert,
and I knew I was an expert in that.
Yeah.
And what I really knew was because I'd already gone through that thing of poles being for wimps and old people, that the poles were really, really important, and so I felt compelled after class just to go up and tell you this, and you didn't really know me from Adam, and you're like, yeah, well, I don't know, but I guess ultimately you took the poles.
Well, I didn't take we didn't have any. Okay. We didn't have any in our house. Now we've got like 8 pairs of those. we got pink ones, blue ones. Yeah. So we were driving. I guess we flew into Phoenix. I think that's the way you fly into
Phoenix and drive up.
Yeah. And we drove it, and we were trying to find an outdoor store because I was like, look, this guy Tom. I don't know this guy Tom, but he told me he's an expert. He knows some of many poles. And we found like a pair of really crappy ones.
Yeah.
So then we found him, then we went there, and we go check into the hotel, and the guy's like, we're like, how's the Grand Canyon? How are the conditions? He's like, oh, it's like a mile of ice on the way in and the way out. And I was like, what? I was like, oh, because it's January. I mean, what was I thinking? Up in my head, I was like, the only time I've been there is like,
it's summer.
It was hot.
180 degrees.
And I was like, oh no. And so the next morning we get up, and I'm like, I don't know. And so we get up Carl's like, I'm fine. And so we go to the little store, like in the park and the general store. And of course, they're all sold out. So we're looking for spikes, the little ones you put on your, and there were like, I had a pair, and then Vern got a pair, but I don't think they really fit or something happened. And then I think he got a pair of poles. He got like the last pair, like Leckies. They're good.
Yeah.
And then, so we go down there and like, yeah, it's icy. I have my spikes. He has the spikes. We each have a set of poles, and we're like, oh my gosh. On the way back out the next day, we had like taken the spikes off, and we had new packs. So I didn't really know how to use the pack. I also didn't really know how to use the tools on a pack.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I should have just had a carabiner and hooked him on a carabiner, and now I know this. But I had like tied him with one of the little stretchy things. spikes, and then we get to the icy area, and we realize that Vern's spikes have fallen off the pack, like
way back.
way back.
Yeah.
And also, I think we had given our poles, one set of poles, to a couple who didn't have any. So we've got 2 poles between us, and I think I had spikes. I think I still, because mine were real, I have small feet, so they weren't going to fit on Vern's shoes. So we're like, let me tell you, Bobbin, have you been there? Have you hiked it? When it's iced, the switchbacks at the top, like you literally, if you could just skim off the edge, like it is.
You're done.
It is not, and I'm not exaggerating.
No,
Okay?
I really want to go.
It's amazing, but I thought we were gonna. I was like, I just got married. I'd literally been married the year before, and I was like, my husband's gonna die because I have an aptitude with using a backpack, So it turns out that, well, first he was using a pole, and we just went really slow. And I was chanting. It's funny. I was doing like Sanskrit chanting the whole time. I was like chanting Shiva. I was like, please. And it was just terrifying. And we got out, but it took us but people were like running down in like Nike trainers. I was like, but it was just very, very stressful. It turns out we got up to the top. There's a couple, somebody had found our spikes.
Okay.
I think another couple in our group had found the spikes, and they used them on the way up.
Okay.
And then we had also given them our poles, so they like made it out. It turns out that maybe they needed them more than we did. Do you know?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like maybe what was supposed to happen happened. Like we're able-bodied and strong, and like we have our wits about us, so it was okay. But I mean, it was just like skating, like up ice. It was terrible. And we like went immediately to that fancy hotel and like had beer, and like we tried to walk down the stairs to the restroom. You have to go downstairs to the restroom, and it was like you had to go down sideways. It was just terrible. I've never been that I was traumatized. Like my nervous system was like, speaking of nervous system, I was like, anyways, I saw Tom and I'm like, Tom, I swear to you, next time I saw you, I was like, if we had not had those poles, I don't know if we would be alive. We would have just gone, whoop, swoosh. We would have been swished little creatures at the bottom of the canyon. Yeah. So thank you, Tom. You saved my life. 2 lives.
Yeah.
Look, your tally is 2.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah.
It could be 4 if you count the other couple.
Yeah.
You never know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because of you giving us the warning, we actually ended up with 2 sets of poles. So
maybe anything we do can generate that. But the thing that I like, for whatever reason, I really wanted to tell you that, and I didn't suppress that. I don't know why, like I just felt like you didn't need to hear it from me, but and that theme of just being willing to listen, and follow that intuition sometimes in life.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to good results, right?
That's right. That is true. And like really speaking up, even when you didn't really know me, but you were like, I need to tell her this. Yeah. There you go. Make sure you tell people stuff.
Yeah, right. Just tell them.
Beautiful. And here we are.
Yeah.
We made it.
Yeah.
Fern and I, now, by the way, I'll be like, it's June.
Heading over to HEB with the poles.
Never know. But I carry those spikes in my pack.
Yeah.
I throw them into my backpack now. And Chelsea Fenn always says you should also travel always with a headlamp.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah.
So I carry with headlamp and ice spikes. And Vern's like, we're in like desert or Death Valley in June, right? Like we're not going to need the spikes. I'm like, I don't know.
You never know.
Perfect.
We're in Bryce Canyon. What? No, we always have the spike.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, we're both just respect you and appreciate you, and to spend the time with us and explore some of these ideas. Super special. So thanks for coming on, huh?
It's my honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
I respect you guys very much too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.